Hi, this is Tradu, and this is my Gallywix Mythic VOD review commentary thingy as a Shadow Priest. First of all, as usual, I'll look at the talents and gear, then I plan for the cooldowns and so on, and then go through the actual fight on our kill. So, first of all, this is a Voidweaver fight. Very clearly, it's basically only single target with a few points of a little bit of cleave or AoE. You play Shadow Crash not because it's super good, but it's cheap to pick up and it helps a little bit. On the class side, you have no huge utility that you need. Maybe you need Life Grip. I didn't, but depending on your tank and your other classes in the raid, maybe you need to grip the tank in the last phase doing the bomb. We had an Evoker doing it, and the Disc Priest was the backup. But you have it spec'd either way in nearly every talent build, so you just be aware that it might be useful on this fight. For your gear, you kind of want IF Kazan, because this fight is really long, so you're going to be sitting at 20 stacks for a very long time. For a similar reason, House of Cards, with its ramping, kind of bad luck protection, whatever effect, is going to gain value. And then obviously Mug's Jug here is just a generally very, very strong trinket. So any of those three is going to be good. Outside of that, just use whatever good trinkets you have, but these in particular stand out on this fight. Okay, then there's the cooldowns. On pull, you have the shield phase from Heroic, that's where it starts. So what you do is you press every single button on your keyboard and do a lot of damage. You can also fade for when the boss lands from the jump thing he does on pull. And in the spinny phase, you can Desperate Prayer once, you can fade another time during that, just to reduce the damage you take there, and you can Vampiric Embrace to help out the healers a bit, just at any point here, during the first 30 seconds or whatever. Then, after that, you press DA on CD the entire time. It looks like there's a gap here. In reality, just because it has a cast time, it will naturally get delayed a little bit each time, so this ends up being basically on CD anyway. Your Shadow Fiend's on CD because otherwise you lose this last cast. So no reason to hold it to line up with other CDs, just press it when it's ready. PI, you do hold, which is here towards the end of the fight, going into the second intermission. You want to hold it to blow up those ads because that's basically the only risky thing at that point. Boss damage is good and all, but making sure that those sentries evaporate is kind of what you exist for. So that's what you hold PI for, you hold the second pot. And you also don't lose a PI use for doing it, so yeah, may as well. Then we have defensives. The only two fades I have in are these two, but obviously press it whenever anything happens because it's cheap to press. It doesn't have a very long cooldown. Desperate Prayer once during the spin, and then you can use it for the heal absorbs. I ended up using it just because I use it here, it's not ready for the heal absorb at 135, which in reality was actually a little bit earlier anyway. But it is back again for this one at 207. Use it there, and then again here for the last heal absorb of the phase. Initially, I didn't use Desperate Prayer during the spinny phase, but instead tried to use it here for this absorb. The problem is, this one is kind of annoying to Desperate Prayer, because if you press all of your CDs exactly on CD, you will want to press Desperate Prayer during a Void Torrent, which is not great. Because like pressing it before the heal absorb is nice and all, but it's not that helpful. What you want it for is to remove the heal absorb afterwards. And you don't want to cancel your Void Torrent. Pressing it after the Void Torrent is over, like 2 seconds later or whatever, at that point the healing absorb should be basically gone anyway, so it's very low value. So instead I moved it here just for more safety during the spin, and then do these other two instead, where I'm not pressing Void Torrent in a way that clashes with the Desperate Prayers. Dispersion, you shouldn't really need it in the early phases, because you lose DPS, sitting in that isn't fun, and there's no huge hits that you need it for. However, later on in the fight, most likely, as Shadow, you're going to be assigned to soaking the scatter bombs, the big red frontal cones that the boss does. So I get a spell warding on one of them, but yeah. For the first one, being on left side in my case, I disperse the first. This one goes on the other side, so that's not my problem. I don't really need to care. I just like maybe press fade or something for the AoE it does to the entire raid. And then here I get spell warding for this one. And then the next one I take is over here, which I have dispersion for again. And then the last one here, I just kind of press whatever I happen to have. The thing about the cone is that it doesn't actually do that much damage. You can live it with literally no cooldowns at all. You'll just be very low health, so if anything tickles you before the healers get the heal absorb removed, you are a corpse. So that's why you disperse or press CDs for it. So for this one, Desperate Prayer, Fade, Dash Heal, Press Power Shield, and you'll be fine, you'll be fairly high health. And on the earlier ones, it's just Dispersion, cancel it, move on with life. If you don't get the spell warding here, disperse there instead. And then disperse the last one here instead. Because this, where I get spell warding, is the one where there's an overlap with a bunch of bombs on the floor and it's spooky, and just be safe and press dispersion for that one if you don't get spell warding. I think that essentially covers the cooldowns. Then the next part is, I guess, looking at the fight itself. As I mentioned, on pull, the boss is going to do the spinny shieldy phase. He jumps to the tank and lands, and you fade that, and then you can move in. You'll be assigned to a pizza slice. You can see here we have these slices divided by the laser beams. Within each of them we have 5 people, except in this one we only have 4 at the moment, and one of the others also only has 4, because we have 2 people hanging out over here. You can see them on the minimap, the Warlock and the Disc Priest. They start outside because they really want to stand still and cast. And then they join their slice later. This does mean they take a lot of extra damage, which is why I don't do it. Initially I was meant to be out there as well. We tried that. I died every other pull or something. It just wasn't worth the risk. So I'm running with the raid. You can see the people in my slice are the Boomkin underneath my cast bar, me, Hunter down here, Hunter down here. And the idea is that the Boomkin is closest to the back beam, then it's me, then it's the 2 Hunters. And then eventually the Disc Priest joins in front of the Hunters. If you stand in somebody else's beam, you take extra damage, so that isn't great. But I'm pressing my cooldowns, I'm pressing health potion just every time in this phase pretty much, just for safety. That way I don't have to care as much about precise movement there. That means I take more damage, but I also compensate a bit for it. Ideally, if you are actually good at movement, you can make this work without stacking on people. You can play it slightly further out as well, but I did not. If you want a good POV of that, you can try to find Vanks from Pure. He did a much better job than I did there. Then next up is going to be the first set of ads, which you want to Shadow Crash and then focus down the Technician. This one has to die quickly, so this one you actually want to directly target. And at early progress, I would recommend also directly targeting the other green marked Technicians, the ones that actually need to die. One annoying thing is that the Technician is like floating or slightly further back or something, so sometimes the Shadow Crash just doesn't hit him. Might just be bad aim on my part, but it happened fairly often and it's annoying. So try to make sure you throw it as far back as you can. And then, yeah, if it doesn't get the dot, just put it on manually. You have Torrent ready naturally, just as the Technician has its dots, basically. So Shadow Crash, Devouring Plague, Torrent is very comfy. Next up is the Frontal Bait, where people get the rockets. Those people just like run around and do whatever they want. And then the people baiting the frontal go here next to the edge, at least with our strat. That way the frontal goes here and isn't in the way, and all the blue sparks for the bomb people stack up neatly. The frontal, however, is a bit weird with the bait. The way we think it works is that it looks for the biggest line that it can hit people with. So let's say here we have the frontal coming. It's trying to hit this blue beam on as many people as it can. Meaning it's not the biggest stack of people, not the biggest like single line of people. It's just the biggest area where the beam would kill the most people. This means that you don't actually need everybody to do the baiting. I was allowed to just play wherever I wanted, along with our Boomkin and the Warlock, but because I did the baiting initially on progress on basically all of them anyway, I just continued doing that because it's not that bad for movement. Then next up is going to be the soaks. Somebody like the hunter put in the bomb and the AoE stopped, but that's not really your problem. You might get assigned to do one of them, but I didn't, so I'm not really going to talk about how to do that. For the soaks, you have this pattern every single time, this kind of C shape or whatever, where they explode from the back and then forwards. I was in the front one on the left, which is number 2 in our counting system, whatever. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the opposite of how they explode. I don't know. And then there's the healer soaks up front, which aren't your problem either. But yeah, stand in the soak, and then this is where your cooldowns naturally come up, so you just press them. And it's really convenient with the Void Torrent to move away from at least the initial suppression, and then you just hope you don't get carpet bombed by people running across. On this set of ads, again, throw Shadow Crash on them, but the Technician doesn't need to die quite as urgently, so we were able to pull some damage off them and just put it into the boss instead. On early progress, just hit the Technician, but eventually I was able to just hit the boss instead. And here, the next thing that happens is going to be soaks, so there's actually no reason to be this close. The only reason I do it is because it makes the Shadow Crash more convenient, because it's easier to see what you're actually throwing it at. And again, on this one, I'm in number 2. The tank is running over, doing the tank thing. And then here, there's a frontal bait. This one was kind of annoying to reach sometimes, but that was mostly me being slow in the brain. And again, there's rockets. If you get a rocket, move out of the way, don't line up across people. Yeah. Not much to say to it. I guess one thing is dodging through the boss is very quick, right? It's a shorter distance than running around. So if you can run through the boss, do so. And then there's an interesting thing about these bombs that get thrown out after the tank AoE ability thing. So for whatever reason, it seems like if they explode at the same time, which they don't always, they explode slightly staggered. But if 2 explode on you at the same time, you don't actually take damage from both of them. There is a cooldown on how often you can take damage from them, of half a second or 600 milliseconds or something along those lines. Meaning, if you stand in a pile of 2 bombs, most likely you take 1 hit, maybe you take 2 hits, and if there's 3 bombs on top of each other or more bombs on top of each other, it's possible to take 3 hits, but I've never seen an example of more than 3 hits. Now, 3 hits will kill you, so you're just like dead and like not much you can do about it, but the slight gap between the hits might give you enough time to health pot in between, and just knowing, I guess, that the most damage you can take is going to be 3 hits, realistically 2 hits. I think that's good to know because it means Desperate Prayer should be enough. Desperate Prayer Fade maybe, to just live 2 bombs. But yeah, ideally don't stand on them because, you know, there's usually not much reason to. This might also explain why Dratnos, for example, in his video says that they don't seem to do very much damage and don't worry too much about them. Then here we had something fun happen, which is somebody, I can't remember if it was the Mistweaver or the Warlock on this pull, but for some reason the melee mobs from the next set just got pulled and ran over to us, so just, I guess, kill them. This might end up being something you do on purpose eventually, depending on if that strat is actually easier. It might be. But yeah, this was not planned. They were not meant to be there. We just kind of deal with it because they don't really do much as long as they get soothed. Next up again is going to be Soak into Suppression, which very comfy. Again, you'll have Void Torrent to cover some of the movement. And again, you run over, you slam your Shadow Crash. In this case, there's only 1 guy, but there should be 3 usually. And this one also doesn't need to die that quickly, so I was able to hit the boss doing this. Then here, the tank frontal is getting placed in this tiny corner, so you don't have that much space to play with. Meaning you play on the edge of the tank frontal, and then after that's gone, you get a bunch of stuff at the same time. You get the rockets, you have to bait the frontal, and then there's the soaks immediately after. So with the rockets, go out, don't be in the way of people. And then the frontal gets baited, and on this one, I'm in the third soak, which is the second to explode, the one in the back left. Because these ones get overloaded a bit with more melees and healers and tanks and whatever, while ranged get shifted a bit more back. And then there's just a bit more ray damage, nothing that you can really do anything about. And a set of ad spawns. Just slam a Shadow Crash on them. These don't need to urgently die. And especially the moon ad here, you don't want to kill yet. This one should not die until 335, 340-ish. So we actually just like drag it to Narnia so it doesn't die to the blender. And then we just like have dots on it to rot it down a little bit. And you just have another suppression, run away, don't get hit by these. The dot actually kind of hurts. And also don't stand as close as I did, because if you stand too close, the explosion also does damage to you. And then here we're slowly killing off this ad. We might even kill it off slightly too early, but basically on time. Here's another one, bait the frontal to the edge, and some rockets. I was late for the bait, but it didn't matter because again, it tries to hit the biggest area of people as far as we can tell. And then there's a very comfortable soak where you just kind of walk in and do your thing. And after this is going to be the intermission. Now I play on the left side, seen from the outside, meaning it's over here. If you are a bomb carrier, you'll be in the middle here. And if you're on the right side, you'll be over here instead. You kind of want to be on the outer part to start the intermission. I was quite slow with that on basically every pull, but that's where you kind of want to be. Then you Shadow Crush the guys over here, you manually dot the 2 sentries, and you press all of your cooldowns, which aren't quite ready yet, but just whenever they are, you press them and start blasting. And then here you have these orange circles that spawn slowly. You have the lightning that kind of moves around, and you want to just switch between these 2 sections as needed to dodge the fire. The lightning does a fair bit of damage, but it's not like it's going to immediately kill you. Like you can see here, I'm a bit slow at moving over. It does half your health roughly, but like you'll live. Here I got completely scammed. The lightning was not under my feet, but it is what it is. Move back in, and then keep hitting the boss because all the ads are dead. And then the first thing that comes up here is the cone soak, which is going to be on my side first, the one I disperse. So I do that, and I delay the Void Torrent a tiny bit on some pulls to do it after my dispersion, because cancelling Torrent with dispersion would be unfortunate. The way the healing absorb works is that it's one gigantic healing absorb that's shared between all of the people who soaked. So anybody getting healed helps get rid of it. This means that if you health pot, that helps get rid of all of them at once. So even if you might not be in danger, getting the others out of the absorb is sometimes useful. Then you get these rockets. You have, at the beginning of phase 2, you have infinity space. Like you have so much room. So you just like place it somewhere away from other people. You can see like the nearest people to me are the Resto Shaman, who's like over here somewhere, and the Boomkin over here. There's just no issue with space at all. He has a slight problem with the bombs, but as you can see, he just presses Astral Shift and lives, no problem. And then the second cone soak comes up for the other side, which, not my problem, I can't really do anything about it. In theory, press Fade because it does some raid damage, but yeah. And then it's Suppression, which as ranged, you're always going to be at max range, basically. So that's not a concern, you just want to not get bombed by the fire. So yeah, don't get bombed. And like this big bomb thing leaves a dot on you that the healers have to deal with. You can't do much about it yourself. You just like press your buttons, I guess. And now comes the next cone soak, which I'm doing, where I get targeted by a bunch of different things. I get my spell warding. I could stand in as many bombs as I want. It doesn't matter. And then the frontal bait. I don't think it went on me a single time during all of our progress. I don't think I ever had to move for it, but it exists. It can happen. It's the same blue beam as in the earlier phase. And then in theory, you want to kind of group up here for the suppression, just so you don't take each other's space. But in the first part of the phase, there's so much room that it doesn't really matter. I end up playing with the boomkin in the second half of the first half of the phase, but that's just kind of because it was convenient. Then you need to find the 1 pixel that they leave on the edge for you, but it's fine. And one thing I guess that Dratnos also mentions in his video is that the bombs try to not land inside the big orange circles from the bombs, so you can kind of force where they go. But yeah, it's whatever, just don't stand in them if you can avoid it. This is where the tank just threw in the bomb and got Evoker rescued back onto the platform, which is going to close off this area and start the intermission. I guess the intermission is on a timer maybe, but yeah. This is the same as the previous intermission, it's just half as much space. So the ads are going to spawn on this line instead, and then left is on this side and right over here. And you have the same thing with the cluster in melee that you just like throw a Shadow Crash on because you can, and you have the 2 outer sentries that you care about. This one is going to mostly get killed by like melee and single target, I think, usually. So I didn't even bother dotting it. Apparently I didn't dot the middle one either, I should have. But yeah. And then once they're dead, you just go back to hitting the boss. And here again, I just walk through some lightning because I'm dumb. It wasn't necessary. And now we just spread out to our sides again. Me and the boomkin playing kind of together, just so we don't take too much space. He's not soaking the cone, so he just walks away. I do soak it with my dispersion. And yeah, and then he comes back, the hunter comes back as well, and we kind of share this space a bit. Next up is going to be some more bombs, where you need to somehow find space, and this time, again, there is very little. The hunter has to find his 1 pixel on the edge between all of us. And then there's some room here in the middle, which is where most of the bombs are going to end up landing, and covering that space. Next up is another cone soak for the other side, which, again, you're going to take some raid damage for it, so pressing fade would have been smart, but I'm not smart apparently. And then the frontal bait comes up, which again goes somewhere that doesn't bother me at all. These balls you don't want to walk into because they stun you, which is dispellable, but like just don't. And then here you can see we kind of group up-ish and try to find space, and it kind of works for most of us, except the boomkin. And then from here, you're just, trying to finish off the boss, doing the same mechanics again. You have a Shadow Fiend coming up, which, like, it's cute. It doesn't really do that much. And then try to find some space where you can stand without griefing people. Again, I'm soaking here, and apparently I didn't. Interesting. But yeah, finish the boss, press your cooldowns right at the end as if they do anything, and that's kind of it. Yeah, I think that covers basically everything on Gallywix, and I hope it was useful. And I don't know when the next video is going to be or what it's going to be about, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. See you then.